obviously Conglomerate Gold, and thanks John, great introduction, and probably saved me an awful lot of time in trying to explain a lot about Conglomerate Gold. But we've also got high-grade cobalt, and that was one of the things that we first focused on earlier this year. So on the left of the price chart, back last year, things were looking pretty grim. Artemis had no money. In today's terms, the share price was 2 cents, had about negative $400,000, and I found myself out in the bush swinging a metal detector. And while I was out there, some prospectors came along, and I ended up, they told me to come down to a specific area, which was on one of our tenements, which we now call Purdy's Reward. And I swung a metal detector for about, I don't know, 30 seconds, and I started finding nuggets. 2 months later, and I'd extended the area to about 650 metres, and I just couldn't believe that, the amount of gold that was coming out of the ground. It took me about 2 weeks to work out that it was fairly significant, and that all the mapping and all the previous work that had been done was wrong. So we then set about trying to get practical evidence that that for the style of mineralisation that was there, and about February, we came out saying that we had a new style of mineralisation for the West Pilbara akin to the Wits Waterand. Our share price went nowhere, and the first kick that you see was we were actually drilling a cobalt project that we have on one of our tenements, which is high grade. We were getting over 1%, and our stock price ran to about 16 cents. At that point, we realised that the Australian market really wasn't buying into this ludicrous story that a junior company coming out saying that comparable to the Wits, which has 2 billion ounces mined, 1.1 billion ounces still in reserve, it couldn't be real. So we looked around and approached by Novo, and we entered into a joint venture. Our share price slowly drifted back, and then, as John said earlier, there was a YouTube video of Novo taking a metallurgical sample, and that was the start of the stock price rocking and rolling. So the deal we did with Novo Resources was a 50-50 joint venture, so that nobody had the upper hand because we still believed in the story. And for that, they were to spend, or are to spend $2 million, and we also received 4 million of their shares. Today, the shares are worth circa around about $32-34 million, and it's also allowed us to build our treasury. So instead of being negative, we now have about 15 million in cash in the bank. So we've also been focusing on another project that we've got up there as well, which is Mount Oscarwitz, which is a conglomerate project as well, and we've been out mapping. And we also, at the same time, we have recently finished a transaction with Fox Resources where we acquired all their projects and also the local or only mill within about 500 kilometres. So our tenure. Over the last year, we've been consolidating projects, and obviously, as we announced yesterday, we've continued to try and consolidate projects within the area. Carlow Castle, which is where are we? Up here was the original focus of what we were doing. The Radio Hill plant down here is the centre for anything that we can find, and everything within 40-kilometre radius of that plant we've got the ability to put through. What we announced yesterday was an area with the Radio Hill plant. We've picked up 70% interest in all these tenements. This area here is the original trend that's where all the interest is, and the work that Novo and ourselves are doing at the moment with the 50-50 JV is all focused on this. But we've also, through exploration, worked out that we've got a continuation of this conglomerate trend all the way through. This licences in here are all granted mining licences. The Radio Hill plant, 425,000 tonne capacity. All the permits are in place for bore fields, tailings dams, all heritage surveys are done, and that really is the ability for us to save an immense amount of time so that anything that we find within the area we can immediately put through through the plant and effectively convert anything to cash. We've had some studies done which show that to refurb the plant would be $5 to $6 million, and the bulk of that cost would be about $1.8 million, which would be for the electrics, because the plant was built back in about 1995. The benefit of the area really is that all the water that's ever been through the plant is fresh water, there's no salt, and it's a dry, arid climate, so the plant's remained in relatively very good condition. And there are no other plants within about 500 kilometres. So we've been approached by a number of people with resources that would like to talk to us about potentially processing, but the reality is that we've got enough in our area that we want the plant for ourselves. Obviously, Conglomerate gold. So this sample is taken from Comet Well, which is Novo Resources, application tenement. The buzzword now, obviously in Western Australia, is Conglomerate gold, and it has the sizzle that's really got people very interested in what's going on. The watermelon flat seed nuggets, which we obviously have at our stand, you can witness, and the morphology of those nuggets is exactly the same, which makes them very unique to the same style of deposit as the Wits Waterand. This conglomerate is a polymictic, fairly immature, and the rocks in it are a selection of gabbro, diorite, pyroxenite, and a variety of other rocks, but the flat nuggets sit in the matrix that sits in between all those clasts. About 2 kilometres to the northeast of this is Purdy's Reward. The main focus in this area was it made it a lot easier for the local prospectors because the ground is quite oxidised, and so it was able, with the metal detector and a pick, you're able to bash the nuggets out, which is where I spent 2 months. And that anecdotal evidence of me prospecting gave me sort of a firm belief in what was going on, and that we were looking at conglomerates, that all the mapping that had been undertaken in the past was completely wrong. The other project we've got, which we own 100%, is Mount Oscovitz, which Fox Resources had. They JV'd out to a Chinese group for iron ore and had got reasonable gold intersections, but didn't believe in conglomerate-hosted gold. So within the conglomerate, they thought that it was a hydrothermal gold. Clearly, after understanding Purdy's Reward, you really just join the dots and say that the gold must be associated with the sedimentary process. So we've done a lot of mapping, we've got extensive strike, and we're obviously going to use all the information that we're learning at Purdy's Reward to work out how we effectively explore this project. Carlow Castle, a cobalt, gold and copper project, which we were focusing on back in February when our share price first ran out, is only explored in a very, very small area right up here. There's an initial resource that was calculated back in 1999-2000, which was 420,000 tonnes at 3 grams gold and about 0.6 copper, but cobalt was never assayed. So I asked the geologist who did the resource, is there any cobalt? He said no. I went, that's very interesting. So we started drilling and we got cobalt grades up to 6.5%. So the best drill intercepts we've got so far to date, around 6 metres at 1.9% cobalt, above 3 grams per tonne gold, and about sort of 1 to 5% copper. We've now looked at, we've put POWs in place, and we're now looking at expanding a geochemical program all the way down around this whole area down here, which has never had any exploration before. So what else do we have in the area? So obviously we've got Purdy's Reward, which Novo are drilling at the moment. Mount Oscovitz, which we've completed stream sampling on and mapping. Silica Hills quartz veins. Carlow Castle, which is, we plan to have a maiden JORC resource in about 3 to 4 weeks. Wiriana, Money, which is a significant PGE resource, the largest one in Australia. And above the PGEs, we also know that we have conglomerates, and that's part of what's tied in with the ground that we just acquired yesterday. We've got the Radio Hill processing plant, where there's residual nickel and copper resource. And we've got the West Wandoo VMS deposits, which we have been trucking low-grade oxide ore to an SXEW plant about 100 kilometres away, and been getting income from that. So what's different? We're expanding our presence with conglomerates. We're trying to rapidly advance other projects that we have. We're trying to monetise our oxide at Wandoo. We've got a money economic study that we're looking at how we relate with the Radio Hill plant to PGEs, and we're also looking at conglomerate hosted gold that sits above the PGE resource, and we'll continue to have active news flow. So what really changed was we've got new management in the company with the operational experience, acquisition of the processing plant, which now allows us to monetise everything, our focus on the conglomerates, and also our focus on cobalt. Thank you very much.